I'm not gonna lie. I think I had the most average Mythic Plus experience possible. I timed a plus 14. Then I failed a plus 14. And honestly, that might be the most Mythic Plus thing ever. Because that's what this game mode feels like half the time. One run makes you feel like, okay, maybe I'm actually getting better. Maybe things are finally clicking. Maybe this is the start of a good session. And then the very next run humbles you immediately. Same key level, same game, same general goal. Completely different experience. And I think that's why Mythic Plus can feel so addictive and so frustrating at the same time. Because it never really lets you get too comfortable. One run feels clean. The next one feels cursed. One group looks solid. The next one falls apart after one pull. One timer feels free. The next one feels doomed for no reason. And after doing one plus 14 that got timed and another plus 14 that failed, I kind of felt like, yeah, this is just the average Mythic Plus experience. Not total disaster. Not total success. Just that weird up and down experience where one run makes you feel good and the next one makes you question everything again. The funny part is, after timing the first plus 14, I actually felt pretty good. Not in some crazy ego way, just more like, okay, that felt decent. The run had rhythm. People were playing okay. Stuff wasn't perfect, but it worked. You know those runs where it's not magical, but it feels stable enough that the key just kind of moves in the right direction? That was the feeling. And when you get a run like that, especially in pugs, it gives you this little bit of confidence. You start thinking maybe tonight is good. Maybe the groups are decent. Maybe this is one of those sessions where things actually go your way for once. And then the next plus 14 happens. And suddenly you remember exactly what game you're playing. Because the fail key wasn't even one of those runs where everything was obviously doomed from the first minute. That's what makes Mythic Plus so annoying sometimes. A lot of bad keys don't start looking bad right away. They start looking playable. And then slowly, or sometimes really fast, one thing goes wrong. Then another. Then the pacing gets weird. Then people stop trusting each other. Then the timer starts feeling bad. And now the whole run feels completely different from what it looked like at the start. That's basically what happened. And I think that contrast is what makes Mythic Plus feel so brutal. You can play one solid key and think, okay, maybe I'm doing all right. Then one bad run shows up, and suddenly it feels like none of that mattered. Not because the good run was fake. Not because the bad run means you're terrible. But because Mythic Plus is one of those modes where your experience is always sitting right in between your own play, the group, the pace, the mistakes, the pressure, and the random feeling of whether the whole thing holds together or not. That's why I think so many Mythic Plus players feel mentally all over the place. Because the mode itself is inconsistent in a very specific way. Not inconsistent like complete luck. More like unstable. You can do the same level key and walk away with two totally different feelings. One makes you feel sharp. The other makes you feel behind. And sometimes the difference between those runs isn't even as huge as it feels in the moment. Sometimes it's just one pull, one death, one moment where the group loses trust, one bad decision at the wrong time, and suddenly the whole run changes shape. That's the part one keep noticing more and more. A lot of keys don't fail because the entire group is horrible. A lot of keys fail because one bad moment changes the energy of the run. And once the energy changes, people play differently. The healer gets more stressed. The tank changes pace. DPS get greedier or more panicked. Interrupts get messier. Movement gets worse. Nobody really says it, but everybody feels it. And once that happens, even a key that still looked playable a minute ago can start feeling dead. That's why timing 1 plus 14 and then failing the next one feels so normal in Mythic Plus. Because the mode is full of that emotional swing. You're never that far from a good run. And you're never that far from a bad one either. And honestly, I think that's why this game mode gets under people's skin so hard. Because success in Mythic Plus doesn't always give you peace. It just gives you enough confidence to queue again. And then the next run reminds you that nothing is guaranteed. That's kind of the whole loop. You get one clean key and think, all right, maybe I'm improving. Then the next key reminds you how fragile everything is. And I don't even mean that in a super negative way. It's frustrating. Yeah, but I also think that's part of why Mythic Plus feels so real compared to a lot of other content. When a key goes well, it feels earned. When a key fails, it usually feels like you can actually point to the moment it started slipping. And when you do one good run and one bad run back to back, it kind of shows you the whole truth of the mode. It's not just about your score. It's not just about the timer. It's not just about whether the run ended green or red. It's about how small the gap is between this feels good and this is falling apart. That gap is tiny. And I think a lot of players underestimate that. They look at a time key and think, okay, that group was just better. Or they look at a failed key and think, okay, that run was just bad. But sometimes the real difference is much smaller than that. Sometimes a successful run just stayed stable a little longer. Sometimes a failed run hit one bad moment and never recovered. Sometimes the key didn't need perfect players. It just needed one less mistake, one less panic moment, one less bad call. That's why this felt like the average Mythic Plus experience to me. Because 1 plus 14 made me feel like things were going in the right direction. And the next plus 14 reminded me how easy it is for a run to go the other way. And if you pug enough keys, that probably sounds extremely familiar. That's the thing with Mythic Plus. You're never really just playing the dungeon. You're playing the pace. You're playing the group mood. You're playing around mistakes. You're playing around trust. You're playing around pressure. And depending on how all that lines up, the same key level can feel completely different from run to run. That's why I think so many people love Mythic Plus and hate it at the same time, because it gives you just enough success to keep going, and just enough frustration to keep humbling you. And when you time 1 plus 14 and fail the next one, that's not even weird. That's just Mythic Plus. That's the average experience. One run makes you think you're on the right path. The next run reminds you how fast a game can punish one bad pull, one bad decision, or one unstable group. So yeah, I guess that's really my takeaway. Timing 1 plus 14 and failing another right after doesn't mean everything's broken. It doesn't mean the good run was fake. It doesn't mean the bad run erased the good one. It just means Mythic Plus is exactly what it always is. Unstable, punishing, satisfying, frustrating, and somehow still addictive enough to make you queue again. And honestly, that's probably why people keep coming back to it. Because even when the experience is painfully average, it still feels like the next key might be the good one. Or the bad one. Probably both. If you pug keys a lot, let me know, what feels more average Mythic Plus to you? Timing one run and bricking the next? Or just living in permanent pug chaos?